Hello, everyone, and welcome to Kilowatt, a podcast about electric vehicles, renewable energy, autonomous driving, and much, much more. My name is Bodie, and I am your host. And on today's episode, we are going to talk about news. We didn't have much Tesla news, so I'm going to start with Tesla news, and then we'll go into the EV news. But before we get to that, I do want to say or recommend that you go and listen to the SMR podcast. It's one of my favorite podcasts. It's hosted by Chris Ashley, Rod Simmons, and my co-host on Beyond the Post, Rob Dunwood. And go and listen to the last two episodes, the August episodes, because there is a lot of EV talk. Rod Simmons just got a Rivian R1T. And in the second episode in August, it's just Rod and Rob. And they talk about Rod just getting some full self-driving features for his 2017 Model X. It's very entertaining. I really enjoyed it, so I am encouraging you to go enjoy it. And I'll put a link in the show notes as well, so you can see that. All right, let's start off. We're going to start off with Tesla news. Looks like there may be a Model Y refresh planned for Q1 2025. That's according to those who watch the supply chain in China. Whether or not this is true, who knows? But we had some rumors of a mid to late 2024 Model Y refresh project, Juniper. We had some rumors that was going to happen this year, and it didn't. And you know what? Probably won't happen Q1 2025 either. But every EV and Tesla podcast is going to be talking about it. So we'll see if it happens. I wouldn't be surprised if it did, to be honest with you. But I also equally would not be surprised if it didn't. Moving right along to the Model X, we talked a little bit about Rod's Model X, but we don't, as a general rule, talk about the Model S or Model X much on this particular show. Well, there is a new promotion if you want to buy a Model X all-wheel drive. So in order to get the promotion, you pay the full $8,000 for full self-driving. And then you can upgrade one of the following for free. Starting off with premium paint, upgraded 22-inch turbine wheels, interior color. You can choose between the 6 or 7 seat interior configuration if you so choose, or you could choose to upgrade to the yoke steering wheel. So you can't choose all of them. You can only choose one of those to upgrade. But if you were going to pay for a Model X all-wheel drive and you were going to buy full self-driving anyway, this is a nice little bonus. I don't know how many people are going to jump on this just because of the bonus, though. Tesla is now capable of producing 700,000 power walls a year, which is about 10 gigawatt hours of storage per year, energy storage. Now, I do want to say that doesn't mean that Tesla will produce that many power walls. In the first 8 years of production, they've only produced 500,000 power walls total. So they could easily crush that in 2025, if they do produce 700,000, but that depends on demand as well as, parts shortages and that kind of thing. Don't get me wrong. I want Tesla to produce 700,000 of these bad chickens because hopefully at scale, that will mean cheaper power walls. Now, I ask you this question. Do you think that if Tesla produces 700,000 power walls a year, we'll get a cheaper power wall, or do you think it won't matter? Send me an email, Bodie, BODIE, at 918digital.com. And in our final Tesla story, I told you we didn't have much Tesla news. Tesla has started taking down documents that are vital to Tesla's history. So some of the documents that were taken down are the original, secret Tesla Motors master plan just between you and me that Elon wrote, so many years ago about talking about, we're going to start with a Roadster and then we're going to go with the very expensive sedan, not as expensive as the Roadster. And then we're going to go with, eventually that will help us build out and get the more affordable cars, a $35,000 car, which happened briefly. And then there was Master Plan Part 2, which talked about the People Mover and the Model Y and the Model 3 and robo-taxis. All of that is gone from Tesla's website. Like, it was all removed last night. Basically, anything that was published before 2019 is gone. Now, last week I was going to mention an article that talked about the articles from 2016. And in that article, it talked about how going forward, all Teslas would be capable of full self driving. And that article was removed. And I thought, well, eh, maybe this is just a one off, or maybe it's just a mistake. But now we're seeing anything published before 2019 is gone. So I don't know what's going on with Tesla in this regard. We'll just have to see what Tesla has planned. There may be a perfectly legit reason to remove all this stuff. I just don't know what that is. All right. Before we get to our EV news, I do want to say that this podcast is supported by patrons. And if you want to support the show, you can go to patreon.com/kilowatt or supportkilowatt.com. Or you can look in the show notes and there's a link to Acast Plus if you don't like Patreon for some reason, and some people don't. And you can support the show for as little as $1 a month. And for just $1 a month, you can give more if you'd like, but for $1 a month, you get an ad-free experience. So if the ads are bugging you, for $1 a month, you can get them removed. And I always say this, but it really bears mentioning because I legitimately mean it. I have a full-time job. My wife has a full-time job. We don't use the money that comes from the Patreon to pay for our bills. The money that comes from Patreon goes right back in Acast Plus, goes right back into the show to make the show better. And that could be audio equipment, that could be, paying for Riverside, which is not cheap, or any of the other services that I have to pay for. So all of the money that you give through Patreon or Acast Plus is what I'm saying, goes right back into the show. None of the money goes into my own pocket. I really want to keep that separate and make that very clear. All right. Let's move on to our EV news. NIO is opening 100 Envo stores in China next week. Now, Envo, when I'm probably saying that wrong, if I'm being honest, but Envo is the $30,000 EV that we talked about that will compete with the Model Y and other vehicles in that class. One of the interesting things that I found out when I was reading this article, and I did confirm it, the Model Y in China starts at $35,000, while the Model 3 starts at $33,000. So much more affordable there in China, or at least affordable by our terms. Next up, Polestar has a new CEO, Michael Loscheller. I'm almost certainly saying his name wrong. He is the new CEO. He is the former CEO of Opel, VinFast, and Nikola. And kind of interesting little side note here is Bart Buchatz will be on next Tuesday to talk about his test drive for the Volkswagen ID.7. If you remember, Bart was looking for a new EV. He made this incredibly cool spreadsheet of all the things that he liked about different EVs and didn't like. And Bart was nice enough to come on the show and share his experiences and his car buying experience. And then he decided that the Polestar 2 was the right car for him. And then the 2024 Polestar 2 was delayed in Ireland. So now Bart is looking again for another EV, and he test drove the Volkswagen ID.7. And I think we had a pretty fun conversation about the ID.7. So that episode will come out on Tuesday. It was a lot of fun. I love hanging out with Bart. He is a lot of fun to chat with. All right. I think you're going to enjoy it. That's all I'll say. I genuinely enjoy chatting with Bart. Moving on. Jamie, who also lives in Ireland, as a weird coincidence here, sent me this article. Used EVs are getting more affordable in the UK. So, for instance, a 3-year-old Model 3 costs around £14,000. And, not that long ago, that car would have cost much more. So this is a relatively new phenomenon of, falling EV prices or used EV prices, which is great because up until very recently, EVs or even used EVs were out of reach for many families in the UK. And Auto Trader actually said that EVs have reached a near price parity with ICE vehicles. So EVs are still a little bit more expensive, but they're within a few thousand pounds of each other. So it's not like it's out of the range if you were between an EV and an ICE vehicle and you really wanted the EV. In a lot of cases, you could spring the extra money for that EV. Not in every case, and I understand that. Two of the vehicles that the article really pointed out as being particularly good value were the Kia e-Niro EV. I guess it's just called the Kia Niro EV over here, and the MG5. Both of those were mentioned as good value vehicles. All right. Let's move on to Rivian. There was a fire at the Rivian plant in Normal, Illinois. Initially, when I saw this reported, some of the articles that I saw reported the factory actually being on fire or the fire occurring inside the factory. And that just was not the case. And the more that I do this show and when things like accidents or fires occur, I'll typically see it. Like I could have put it in one of our previous shows, but I wanted to hold off and kind of find out what really happened. So it turns out the fire was outside the factory. So the factory was not damaged in any way, but a bunch of Rivian vehicles were damaged. And you were asking, how many? And the answer is we don't know. Rivian hasn't released that information, or at least I haven't seen it as of yet. Inside EVs is reporting that over 50 R1Ss and R1Ts were burned. And there is, in one of the articles, there is a link to a video, and you can look at the articles in the show notes and see that video. It's a pretty impressive fire for sure. As we get more information, I will report it back, but that's where we're at as of right now. Sticking with Rivian news, Rivian has launched a referral program. So if someone uses your referral code to buy a car, then you will get 750 points. Each point is equal to $1. So you can go to the gear shop and buy, I don't know, a Rivian branded tent or whatever, or the kitchen that they're trying to sell. Or you can go to the R1 shop, and the R1 shop is the actual buy a vehicle part of the website. So you could actually put that $750 or however much you've accrued in your referrals toward a new vehicle. So that's pretty great. If you don't want 750 points, you can take 6 months of free charging on the Rivian Adventure Network. Now, if you don't have a Rivian Adventure Network charging station near you, this is probably not the best way to use your referral rewards, but you make your own choices. As an added bonus, the person who buys the car, so you give your referral code to Sally and Sally buys the car, well, Sally is going to get those same reward options. So this is good. It's Rivian's first entry into a referral program. I think it's pretty simple. It's not confusing. So is it a good deal or not? I don't know. Points expire after 2 years. And in this particular version of the referral program, it's only valid until the end of the year. And then they reserve the right to come up with a new referral program. And maybe it's better, maybe it's worse. It kind of depends. There's also another added special bonus for you, the Rivian owner. If you refer 25 qualifying referrals, so 25 people buy a car with your referral code, and you're in the first 100 people to do that, they are going to give you a very special Rivian Adventure weekend. What does that mean? We don't know. There's no details. But I did a little math. So if you referred 25 people and they all bought vehicles, that would generate, and they all bought the lowest price vehicles they could buy, that would generate $1,750,000 for Rivian. Of that, you would get $18,750 in reward points and a nice weekend away. It is certainly better than nothing, but it seems like if you generated, almost $2 million in revenue for a company, you would see more than $18,000 in points. Like there needs to be something else, and it can't just be the Rivian Adventure weekend. I don't care how cool that weekend is. It doesn't make up for the fact that I just gave you almost $2 million in business. But again, it's better than nothing. So I'm not going to nitpick it. Sorry. Let's go move on to our next story. The U.S. has awarded $525 million in grants that will result in 9,200 EV charging points. Now, there was some story, and I don't remember exactly what it said, a couple months back that said there's only been a handful of chargers in the United States that have come from the IRA funds, like the $5 billion that was supposed to be set aside for charging infrastructure. Well, now it looks like the grants have gone out, and we should see 9,200 EV charging points being deployed in the community. So this money was deployed in two different ways. $321 million was made for community projects. So there was one for Maricopa County that I'll talk about. And then $200 million was to fund corridor fast charging projects, excuse me. And from what I understand, those corridor charging projects, those are along like freeways and stuff, or at least they're supposed to be. So, traveling from one state to another, that kind of thing. There's only 10 corridor fast charging projects that were approved for $200 million. That means, it's roughly, if you average it out, this isn't the case for every one, but if you average it out, that's $20 million a piece, which seems kind of high. Let's talk about the one in AZ in Arizona and use that as an example. So I actually put a link to the government's website that lays out all of these projects so that you can see what's going on in your area. So in Maricopa County, they got $15 million. And the Maricopa County Air Quality Department will receive the $15 million to install publicly accessible EV charging stations at facilities that participate in the Maricopa County Travel Reduction Program, which I think my city does. This includes schools, businesses with at least 50 employees. The project will increase the number of publicly available EV charging stations available to Maricopa County residents and visitors, particularly in areas that have been designed as part of the Federal Justice Initiative project. And blah, 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 blah. There's going to be outreach and community meetings. Like I said, there's a complete list in the show notes if you want to see what your state or community is up to. Research done by the American Council for Energy Efficient Economy, and their report had a few interesting items, and I'm just going to read some of the bullet points here. I'm not going to go into the whole report, but making EVs more efficient could reduce the upfront cost by $5,000. And that means, more efficient means smaller battery packs, but the same range. So that could save you, when you buy your next EV, $5,000, which is a significant amount of money. A 40% more efficient EV will significantly reduce carbon emissions and pollutants that will directly affect the health of humans. And I would add, without any knowledge of this subject, they would probably also positively affect the health of animals and plants. We eat some of those animals and plants. We bring some of those animals and plants into our homes, and then we just take pictures of some of those animals and plants. No matter what political side of the spectrum you're on, we all want healthy family members. We all want to be healthy. We all want our animals to be healthy, the food that we eat to be healthy. We all want to go out into nature and take pictures and hike. So all of this is a positive. 40% more efficient EVs will significantly reduce those carbon emissions and pollutants. This is great. I found this to be hilarious because on the Daily Tech News Show, I defended the GMC Hummer EV, not because it was the most efficient EV out there, but because of some other things. But the GMC Hummer EV is the most inefficient EV out there, 1.4 miles per kilowatt hour, which is honestly not great. Ultra luxury SUVs and these newer pickup EVs, they're not quite as efficient either. They're right around 2.5 miles per kilowatt hour. And any EV that can achieve 3.5 miles per kilowatt hour could actually reduce result in a savings of about $680 a year. So some financial savings there as well. And then, finally, and we all kind of know this when we're talking about EVs and how they're powered, electrical grids are getting cleaner by and large. Fossil fuels, they're not. There could be more efficient ways to get the fossil fuels out of the ground. There could be more efficient ways for ICE cars to burn that fuel, but by and large, it's still a pretty good polluter. Necessary in a lot of cases. I happen to drive a fire truck that is absolutely disgusting when it comes to belching out black smoke, or at least one of the ones that I drive is that way. Not all of them. But the point is that anything that we could do to clean up the air, and I'm not even talking about climate change or global warming or anything like that. I'm talking about cleaning up the air so that we are breathing clean air, so that we are staying healthy. Our kids are healthy, our animals and plants are healthy, is a good thing. So let's bring on the efficiency. All right, everybody, that is it for me today. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Please go listen to the SMR podcast. I'll put a link to their show in the show notes. And then I'll also put a link to the previous episodes with Bart in the show notes as well. So if you want to go back and re-listen or listen for a first time to Bart's EV adventures, I would encourage you to do that. And yeah, I hope you all enjoyed this episode. I will talk to you on Tuesday. Oh, by the way, have a good weekend.